Sykamore, great to see you. I was trying to remember. I think the last time you and I saw each other was Boots and Hearts
I think you might be right. In person, for
in
sure. It was
person.
at it
Yeah.
was at Boots. Yeah, for sure.
How I'm just if you remember back then, because that was a way before Megan Patrick became pregnant, and I always like to mention that. Congratulations on her
Yay, Megan.
being pregnant now.
Yeah.
But that's when she was skinny and no big belly. How was that event for you? Because I had a blast.
It was a great time. That was my second time playing Boots. And we had great weather, which isn't always
Yeah.
the case at Boots. I've never been to one where they have to evacuate everyone, which sounds like an adventure in itself. But no, it was a good time. I drove up from Nashville in a Sprinter with my band
Wow.
and never done that before. And then we had a great day. And yeah, I forget the name of the stage that we played, but it was full, it was packed, and it was awesome to see people there. And yeah, it was a good time. I hope you also had a good time.
I had a great time. Great seeing you. Great seeing her. Great seeing everybody. Just so you know,
Yeah,
last year it did rain when I was there. But
that's what I heard. I couldn't remember if it was last year or it was in recent years because I get their Instagram posts, right? And I remember
yeah,
seeing kind of a flurry of like, okay, we have to evacuate, and then like we're maybe gonna start bringing people back in, but like you get kind of the play by play even if you're not there. So glad
that
everybody
was
was safe.
that was actually the weekend that you performed. That
Was
happened
it? Oh,
because it was the next day. It wasn't on your day. It was the next
oh,
day, and
okay,
literally it was like, yeah, they had to evacuate. No,
okay.
last year was more like a fun rain. It was
Oh,
like people were
okay.
just sort of hanging
Yeah.
out and whatever else. It was actually a lot of fun. I really
Wasn't
enjoyed
like
it.
a
No,
dangerous rain. That's great.
no,
Good.
no. I always try to avoid it. But what has been going on with you for the last few years? Because we always keep saying the world is changing. Oh my God, the
Yeah.
world has changed. So how have you adjusted to this roller coaster?
It's to be a musician in the era that we're in is really interesting because, and maybe this was never the case, but I've certainly come around to the idea that there are no rules anymore as far as even just like what genre you're supposed to be in, how you go about gaining exposure, gaining an audience. It's really up to you. And I think that's probably always been the case, maybe since the advent of the internet and streaming and that sort of marriage to music. But I think it's becoming more and more in the artist's hands as far as being the captain of your own destiny. Um, and that's a really exciting thing. I think it can be interpreted as scary, but it can also be interpreted as exciting because it's more responsibility on you as the artist. You have to become more of a business person. But I think it's more rewarding on the back end to, have a little more creative control and have a little more say and even just a little more direct connection with your fans. I think it's really cool. And so, yeah, I think that's probably the main shift that I've noticed, at least in the music landscape, is just that um, the gatekeepers and the rule makers are kind of all gone by the wayside, and you can kind of decide how you would like to go about, dictating your career and making the decisions you want to make. And there's just a lot more freedom to play, and I find that exciting.
Is that why you may have just answered something that I've asked some other artists this too? Because when I did the Juno Awards
Hmm.
just recently, there were a lot of artists that I knew who were signed to major labels, but they were independent.
You mean they've just
And
gone independent?
they just went independent. And
Hmm.
I was like, huh, this seems to be a trend. There were more independent artists in, for what I saw. And again, these are artists who I've known for years
Hmm.
than artists that were signed. Mind you, they're still working with the bigger labels, but they're more of dis distributing their
Right.
work, not so much as the craft of the work.
Yeah, I think that's becoming more and more common just because of, like I said, I think just the nature of all the relationships are changing. And, artists, I think there's a new breed of artists that's sort of coming out of the streaming era and the social media era. And that is the type who is very involved in every aspect. I think, we're talking decades ago, but I think there was a time when the artist was like, I just want to do the music and somebody else do all the background stuff, all the admin, you know. But I think now we're starting to come into a little more of an entrepreneurial kind of artist who is
Yeah.
interested in having a hand in every area of their career. And I think as that sort of becomes a little more prevalent, we probably are going to see a little more partnerships that are a little untraditional, and maybe that will become the new norm. And so I think you're right. I think it's a trend, and I think it has everything to do with just the way an artist is making their way through the world now. It's you have to adapt and become different. And by doing so, other relationships adapt as well.
I agree with you. I think social media has something to do with it because they have to do social media all the time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
what was I just thinking too? There's something else that also, because now you hear the horror stories of the past of what happened to artists who have signed and not read their contract to
Right.
see what's happened to them in their future. And now I think a lot of artists are trying to avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, you always got to read the fine print, right?
Yes,
It's so
absolutely.
true.
So
Hmm.
let's switch gears because one of the big reasons why we're talking is because you have a new single that I am fascinated about. And the reason why is this is such a true story
Right.
for any mother who has a
Hmm.
child, especially if it's a boy. And I'll leave it to that. And now I'm going to say this. What is the name of the new single? How does it represent you in this point in your career? And what is this great single about?
So the song is called He's Mine, and I always feel like I have to say that it's been around and it's been in my live show for the better part of a decade. And it's been recorded a handful of times, but for some reason or another, it was always just not, it didn't make the cut for the album or whatever. And I think part of the reason is because I knew it was kind of a special song to me, and I was holding on to it almost out of fear that it maybe wasn't the right moment. Like I kept kind of hanging on to it and procrastinating. And I reached a point where I thought I just need to put it out. I don't know if there's ever going to be a perfect moment to put it out. And I was at a point where I was getting DMs, almost daily from people who've heard it in my live show, and they say, "When is that song coming out?" And I thought, if for nobody else, I have to put it out for these people who know that it exists and they want to be able to listen to it. So the song is about, I suppose it's about mothers and sons, but in a greater respect, it's about just parents and kids, and really just about how that relationship changes over time, and how, because it's such an interesting dynamic between parents and kids, and
Yeah.
fathers and daughters and mothers and sons. It's at one point in their lives they need you for everything, and then as they grow they need you for less and less, and then eventually they go and hopefully start their own family. And as a parent, I think it's really probably, like, I'm not a parent yet, but I think, having talked to my friends who are parents and having just lived in the world, I can understand that it's not always um straightforward or easy to just kind of understand that your kid doesn't need you as much anymore. And so I think the song itself sort of explores that dynamic a little bit, and it explores just how much your parents, and all parents hopefully, want that you just want the best for your kids as they go out into the world. The world is a scary place. Putting your heart out there is a scary thing. And I think more than anything, they just want their kids to be loved and supported and safe. And that's sort of what this song is all about, is kind of just wishing your kid well, but also kind of exploring the idea that, like, you will always be your parents' kid in some way, and despite the change in that relationship. So I hope that explains it.
It does, but the thing I was picking up on was the fact that the child who was growing up, whose the mother it was she was the queen, or
Right.
she is the queen.
Hmm.
But suddenly there's another queen who is now entering his life.
Yeah.
And the mother is sort of having to deal with having to share that
Hmm.
throne with this other person in a
Right.
way that, and he's in the middle because she can't be in his life the way this woman can, but this woman can never be in his life the way she is.
Yeah, and I think, I always like to point out that it's not, I never like to imply that there's a competition happening. I think it's a little more about just the adjustments that we make in our lives
Yes.
as relationships change and adjust. And I think it's yes, I think there is an element where it is about sharing, but I think it also is also just about, there's a line in the chorus that says, be kind because he only has one heart. And I think that is the sentiment that I really hope lands with people is it's a mother wanting the best not only for her son but for his relationship, for his girlfriend and his wife. It's like just remember to be kind to each other because you're both in a vulnerable position and spoiler alert, he ends up marrying this girl in the song. And I think it's more just wanting them to put their best foot forward and understanding that this is a really precious relationship. But I think something that's heavy on her heart is, this is my kid that I, you know, hopefully raised into a good man. And so I want you both to just put your best foot forward in this relationship. So that's what I hope people glean from it. I don't want people to hear it and think, oh, this is like the song for, the mother-in-law to abuse in any way. I think
No,
it's a little
no.
more about just, yeah. And that's why I like to say it's just about parents and wanting the best for your children and wanting the world to be nice to them in a way and wanting love to be nice to them because it can go sideways and it can go sour pretty quick. And what parent would want to see their kid go through that, you know?
Yeah, no, I actually when I was listening to the song, I was thinking about the old movie Father of the Bride, Steve Martin.
It's a great movie.
That's yeah, I that was instantly what I kept thinking about because of him going through the same thing of the
Right.
song that you wrote. How did you come up with this? That's the thing I'm so fascinated about.
Well, I was at a wedding and being a songwriter, I feel like we were always a little bit uh, just making observations around like other people's social interactions, just in case there's something to write about. And we were, at the reception and it was at that point where they were having the dances between the father
Yeah.
and daughter and the mother and the son. And it was just sort of a fleeting thought that as the mother-son dance was happening, I thought, I don't know that there's a song anyone's ever written kind of specifically for this moment, because I know there's been a lot of beautiful songs written for the father-daughter dance. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe there is one. And I kind of did a little bit of research and I couldn't super find one. And then this was, weeks or maybe months later when I was writing, and I think I had started to maybe like write a maybe more traditional father-daughter thing. And then I was like, I almost want to challenge myself and see if I can write the other one, because it's not as traditional. It's a little more off the beaten path. And so at first I kind of wrote it as an exercise,
Mhm.
and I didn't even know if I loved it, if I'm being honest with you. And I kind of sat with it and I sent it to my manager at the time who really liked it. And then he started sending it to people and the feedback became pretty positive and it caught some people off guard. And then the more I listened to it, and I started playing it in my live show. And then it was really when I started playing it in my live show that I understood it was starting to reach people almost in a way that I didn't expect. I started having people come up after the show or DM me after the show and say not only that the song really touched them, but people always feel so compelled to tell me their story, the reason why
Yeah.
they relate to it. And I'm always so honored to hear these stories because it's people from all walks of life. It's, you know, young moms who have little 3-year-old boys and they're like, yeah, I'm already thinking about the day he leaves home and, like, or it's sons who are getting married and they say, I'd love to use that song to dance with my mom at my wedding. And so, I've heard endless, infinite stories about it. And I always feel so honored to hear the stories because it means to me that something I wrote has really resonated. And that's your job and your hope as a songwriter. So it's been a really cool journey to watch that unfold. And it hasn't stopped. It's been a decade of playing it and people still reach out about it. So I feel really privileged.
Yeah, it's funny. I got a friend of mine who I love to tease her about because she's got like a 3-year-old, and I'm always like, there's a 2 or 1-year-old out there that that's the one you got to deal with. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm not ready for that.
Yeah, you know, it's
Yeah.
a hard thing to wrap your brain around. Like I said before, it's a parent-kid relationship is very unique in that, you know, it's for some most people it's the longest relationship you ever have, and it's the one
Yeah.
that changes the most. And I think that you can't help but have to really sit with that and learn how to adapt as a parent and as a kid because there's still so much love there, but it has to change. And you know, it's kind of interesting to, it's such a cool kind of case study to see the way love can endure through all that,
Yeah.
right? Hmm.
Absolutely. And I'm not kidding when I ask this. Has Hallmark contacted you yet to put that song either in one of their films or even make a film around your song because it is so vivid and it tells such an incredible story. They need to jump on this, and I'm not kidding.
I have not, Hallmark has not reached out, but you know, if you have their number,
I I hope so.
we
The
can
other
make it
thing too,
happen.
because when you said that this song came from a wedding, have you heard from people saying that they are playing this song at weddings?
I have. I've quite a few people, and I feel like since the song came out, it's ticked up a little bit because prior to that, it was people DMing me and saying like, "Do you have any kind of recording of it that we could just play at the wedding? Like, we won't share it with anybody." So like, I've shared the master with a few people before it was even released because I thought, well, it's just shy of the release, and so they should be able to play it at their wedding. But yeah, and that's again such an honor to know that they're seeking that out and that it's hopefully, you know, it's kind of a full circle moment because I thought of the idea at a wedding, and so now that it's being played at weddings, it feels like it maybe is landing right where it should.
Yeah, and we are in the wedding season, so no
True.
surprise there.
Yeah.
What's the rest of 2026 looking like? Are we looking at an EP or an album? Are we going to be doing some shows? I haven't seen your name on Boots this year, if I'm correct.
No.
Any chance maybe next year? And other than that, will there be other festivals happening?
Yeah, I'm working on it. I've got a few I think I don't know if I can talk about it, but there's some dates in
Yes, you can.
Ontario.
Just this is you and me.
Yeah. Some dates in Ontario coming up in kind of June, July, August. So those will be great. And Boots actually now has a Alberta festival that they're doing. It's like Boots West, or I can't quite
Yeah, I
remember what
saw
it's
that.
called.
Yeah.
But I have my eye on that. If not for the Ontario one, I think being from Alberta, I would love to get down and see what that's all about. And then, yeah, as far as new music, I'm working on a new project, and He's Mine. It fits really well in there because these songs I'm writing are very kind of autobiographical and largely only written by me. And so I'm really exploring kind of a really personal project. And it kind of kicked off with a song called Country Kid that came out last year. It was kind of a song all about my childhood growing up in rural Alberta, being raised by farmers and ranchers. And then that sort of inspired me to just keep writing about my life experiences and not trying to fabricate as much. And so that's sort of so far that's been the theme of these songs. And so I'm really excited. I've got a couple that are recorded. We're in the midst of recording more. I'm not sure exactly when it will come out, but that's sort of what's on the horizon, new music wise.
I am so happy, and if I can say proud of you, especially from the first time that we met, to watching
Yeah.
how your career has grown and how artistic you have become through your music. I'm looking forward to what you're going to do in the future and cross fingers that we can see each other again. Thank you so
Yes,
much for
sir.
this interview, but seriously, congratulations on this great song.
Thank you, Rudy. I appreciate you.